What's up, guys? So today on the podcast, Eugene and I are going to answer a couple questions that we've got asked. One of which is about feeling guilt for not training. Maybe some of you guys have felt that. I felt that personally. Another question that we're going to answer as well from one of the viewers is some advice for a brand new jiu-jitsu coach. And so I'm going to give you some advice, some things that have been helpful. And again, you may not be a coach right now, but everybody at some point, if you train long enough, will probably have an opportunity, if they want it, to help out their coach with a class or something. So we're going to answer those two questions. And then afterwards, we're going to do a little bit of Q&A. So I do an Instagram sort of ask me anything once a month now. And I've got some questions on there. And so we had one of our guests had to cancel last minute. And so I figured we would have fun with your guys' questions today and keep it kind of loose and fun. So we're going to jump into that. Hope you guys enjoy the podcast as always. Big thanks to our sponsor, Charlotte's Web, for helping make the podcast happen. I actually got a question on my Instagram just last night when I was going through these questions. And one of them is like, Chewy, does CBD help with some of the aches and pains from jiu-jitsu? And so from my experience, it does help with the sports-induced inflammation that we get. We get inflammation in the body, and there's some cool stuff out there to sort of back that up. Again, it's very murky water, but I can tell you anecdotally, that's the reason why I started taking CBD in the first place. I was back in, it was 2018, I think, maybe 2017. Oh, yeah, 2018, 2000. I can't remember. It's been a long time, but it was at the beginning of 2018, I believe. And one of the guys at the Costa Rica trip had this rub, and I put some on, and I kind of forgot about putting it on. And then the next day, like my knees felt less stiff and achy, and I was like, "Huh, they feel pretty good today." And I remembered I'd put the CBD balm on it, and then I came back from a training session in Nashville, and I had this gnarly knot in my back. Like basically I was going with one of the guys who's a good wrestler, and he kept snapping my head down, and I had a gnarly knot in the middle of my shoulders. It kept flaring up. And I remember one of the guys on my birthday, Tony, he rubbed this cream on my back. He put this like CBD balm on my back. And then all of a sudden, like Jess was coming into the room. I was reading at my desk, and she says, "Hey, you're not crouched over anymore." Because when my back was hurting, it hurt to extend straight up because of the muscles. And so I was like, maybe that's something. And that's why I actually started taking CBD. And then I tried some of the local stuff that was here, but like the local stuff was so unreliable. There was one company in particular here in town where I took it, and I literally just felt like I ate an edible or something. I felt high. I was like, I mean, this doesn't feel terrible, but I don't know if this is the CBD that I was trying to get. It's after all,
feeling I'm looking for.
Right. And so, with Charlotte's Web, they became a sponsor, and we started using their products. And we really like their products because of the fact that, again, it's regulated. They regulate themselves with third-party testing, and I can use it, and it's very consistent. I know the exact amount I need to use, and it doesn't change because it's super on the money. And again, it's in an unregulated market, so you could use a batch of some CBD product, and if they're not very strenuous with what they do, it could be different the very next time you get it from other times. Again, that's one of the cool things about the company, and that's why we use them. And so again, if you guys want to check them out, you can go to their website at charlottesweb.com. Promo code is Jiu-Jitsu20 for 20% off your order. And again, I always encourage people, don't take my word for it. Try it out for yourself. It's not that expensive. And again, if it does help you in the same way that it's helped me and a lot of other people, you can read the anecdotal experience of a lot of people. I mean, it's well worth it. And so check it out. You can go to the website and save 20% off using Jiu-Jitsu20 as the promo code. Also, thanks to our sponsor, Epic Roll, for making really cool jiu-jitsu gear and jiu-jitsu gear. The whole gym now is basically decked out in jiu-jitsu gear. And I know that we just finished up the orders. We have a few more for you guys that are out there. We had a few people that had different sizes and stuff issues. We're getting those wrapped up. Matt's taking care of it. But again, he did a good job. I really like all of his stuff. So if you're in the market for jiu-jitsu related gear or merch or hoodies or whatever, check out his website at epicrollbjj.com. The promo code is Jiu-Jitsu for 15% off. He has a bunch of cool gis, rash guard shorts, hoodies, t-shirts, the whole thing. And again, if you guys ever watch any of my YouTube videos and there's like a cool jiu-jitsu shirt that you don't know where it's from, 9 times out of 10, it's probably one of his because I like his stuff. And that's why I like wearing it. And so actually I'm wearing one of his shirts right now. There's his logo. So again, if you guys want to check him out, epicrollbjj.com, promo code is Jiu-Jitsu for 15% off. And also thanks to our sponsor, Manscaped, for helping make the podcast possible to you. Because again, you guys are listening to it probably for free, I imagine, except for the Patreons. So you'll listen to it for free and enjoying it, which we're happy to do it. But again, Manscaped is the premier men's below the belt grooming, and they also make some other products that you can use pretty much from head to toe. A lot of people ask me, hey, Chewy, do you use beard oil or whatever? Like, how do you trim your beard? So number one, I don't use any beard products really. I mean, my beard just I'm just hairy. Like it just comes in, so
beautiful.
I'm just a hairy guy, right? So it just came in like it is, that's fine. But if you've wondered like how it gets trimmed, I use they made it for a ball trimmer. That's what it was, the lawnmower. They're basically the little trimmer, and I use that on my face as well. I like it because it's portable, so it's cordless, and I can kind of sometimes like when I would use my corded one, the little cord get wrapped around stuff, and so I can kind of get in there and like when I'm trying to trim it, and I like the trimmer. It's a good trimmer. And again, they also make a lot of other products, colognes and lotions and balms and razors and stuff like that. And everything that I've used so far has been really good. So whether you're in the market for yourself or for another man in your life, check out their website if you want some men's grooming products. It's manscaped.com, and the promo code is Jiu-Jitsu20 for 20% off plus free shipping. So it's a pretty good deal on anything they have on their website. So check them out. And also thanks to our Patreon members. Appreciate you guys for supporting the podcast. And if you guys would like to support the podcast directly, you can do so by going to patreon.com/the Jiu-Jitsu podcast. And again, there's a few different membership options there. If you guys have listened to the podcast, you probably know what's offered there, but check it out. You get a bunch of different content that we have not released anywhere else that we produce with the podcast, and also with some of the videos and stuff like that, again, I don't share anywhere else that are available to you. And you also have an opportunity to speak with us live, should you like to. If you'd like to hang out with us live, then go to the website at patreon.com/the Jiu-Jitsu podcast. Check it out, get the information, join up if you'd like, and support the podcast. And also, if you guys would like to join my email list, the Chew Crew email list, where I send out my daily message, my daily email. Again, it's going strong and people enjoy them. It's pretty cool. It's interesting. Like with a lot of times, don't get me wrong, in the emails, I do put like offers, or I do tell you about different things I've got going on, but I do try to make sure that in every email, there is a nugget of information that could be useful to you, something that would have been useful to me at some point, or is useful to me at some point. And the readership's going pretty strong. Like, if for any of you guys that are in like the marketing space, there's a lot of times people's like email lists are kind of like they don't, the readership goes down and down and down. Like mine progressively over the years has gone up. So like the percentage of people that open the emails is pretty insane for like the space that I'm in, and it keeps going up. So again, I try to respect your time that you spend reading them, and I try to give you something for it. So if you want to check it out, you can go to jujitsu.net/join, JOIN. And by joining the email list, you'll get 3 free ebooks plus some video. And again, those 3 free ebooks are: 1, a game plan guide to help you out with a game plan, whether for your jiu-jitsu training or for competition; a drilling strategies book, which will basically help you get some philosophy and strategies for drilling, and can be really useful for helping you break plateaus in your jiu-jitsu game. And then the other one is an at-home jiu-jitsu study guide and workout program that you can get. So again, you get all 3 of those for free by joining up at jujitsu.net/join. And also, guys, if you listen to the podcast on any space that has a rating opportunity or rating sort of thing where you can give us stars or likes or pluses or minuses or whatever the hell it is, I don't know, stuff's out there. But if you guys can give us a rating or a review, we would definitely appreciate it. Again, it takes you literally a minute to do, and it would help out the podcast a lot. It really does. So if you guys have a minute, this is me making you feel guilty, which you're probably like, screw you, Chewy. I'm not going to feel guilty about this. I know you're not going to, but I'm just saying, hey, listen, if you got a minute and your podcast app gives you the ability to give us a review, we'd certainly appreciate it. And would mean a lot to us. So with that said, guys, let's jump into today's podcast and let's answer these questions, and then we'll get into the little bit of sort of rapid fire Q&A today.
So, Chewy, let's get into it. So we had some questions from Instagram, actually, for the podcast itself. And so One's from Jason and one's from Sean. So let's get into the first one. And the first one's from Sean, and he says, "Why do I feel so guilty when I don't train?" So one of those things, yeah, feeling guilty when you don't train.
That would be an interesting. That's like one that I would want to sit down with that person a little bit and talk to him, because there's like it's interesting. There's something going on. So
Well,
for instance,
like maybe not going to, like, even lifting weights, or I don't know. I feel that way too sometimes. I think if I don't maybe get exercise in or movement in, not
well,
specifically
sure.
jiu-jitsu, but
You have to disseminate what it is. So for instance, like sometimes I don't feel good if I don't work out. Like I feel this something's off, right? I don't feel good and I need to go work out. And that's a real thing. But I've also experienced this issue where I feel guilty um about all kinds of stuff. For instance, like even sometimes taking a day off from the gym as a gym owner, coach, and someone who really likes, I feel guilty as a person. I have to fight with that. It's something I fight with all the time. And a lot of times it's because I've become sort of like almost like a tyrant to myself, as if I'm always supposed to be there or always supposed to do something, or that I'm letting someone down, something like that. And so really the question comes down to, you've got to figure out what it is. So an example, I used to feel guilty about not working out because I fought so hard to not be the fat teenager kid,
yeah,
that then, like, if I didn't work out, I felt like I was moving back towards that thing or being lazy, right?
sure.
Or even sometimes like getting an extra hour of sleep, I would feel guilty as if I was somehow being lazy by getting extra sleep, even though I needed the sleep, right? So you have to really, when something like this comes up, I think a really useful exercise. I was talking to one of the young guys today about this, not about this question, but about this exercise, because you got to dig deep. Um, Essentially, there's some belief that he's holding, that he's got to figure out, like, why do you think that way? Why do you feel like there's some reason to conjure up guilt for not going to the gym and working out? That's silly. Unless of course you are avoiding the gym and you're not working out like you probably should, to keep your, and also depends on your goals. So many things dig in. It's really hard to pinpoint why he feels guilty without being able to actually question him and dig into it. But essentially what
Yeah.
it comes down to is it's a belief that he's holding that then is leading him to feel guilty about not doing something. I mean, it's as simple as that. He's holding on to something mentally that's then making him feel guilty for not doing this thing.
Yeah, I think the guilt comes from maybe knowing that you should be doing something, or that this specific thing is good for you, but you're kind of avoiding it. Or, I mean, maybe that's why. Like sometimes you can't, circumstances don't allow, time, work, whatever, and that's kind of out of your control. But like I think if you are actively like avoiding the gym, avoiding going to jiu-jitsu, and you feel like you should, or you're kind of for some, and everybody's got, like you said, everybody's got their own reason. So I think it does depend on why you're doing it, or maybe what the guilt's, where it's coming from, I guess. But
Well,
I think it's just, if you're able to go and you just don't go, like, kind of thing. Like it's like, I should eat my vegetables, but I'm not going to because I don't like them. I know they're good for me, but I still don't want to do it.
Well, and so I'm assuming that he's already training regularly. That's
Yeah,
why
I would think so.
So, I mean, again, if you have a goal of doing something, and then there's certain tasks that it's going to require you to achieve that goal, then it's very plain and simple why you feel guilty. You're not holding up to what you want to truly do. Because then, I mean, because we all have ideals that we're trying to shoot for. And, well, not everybody, but you should have things that you're shooting for. And if you have this thing in your mind, okay, it's going to take this, this, and this to do that, and you don't do those things, well, then obviously you feel guilty because you're
Yeah.
failing yourself. That's plain and simple. And you should use that guilt as a kick in the ass to go do something simple. But then there's sometimes where we get so attached to an idea, a routine, a particular pattern of doing something, that we just get locked in. For instance, I used to teach every jiu-jitsu class every single day, almost, well, not almost every day, for a number of years at the gym. And I mean, they were talking about adult classes, kids classes, morning, evening, all the time teaching. And I had to do what I had to do, right? At that, there was a season of my life where that was the thing I had to do. And I remember when I started to shift away from doing that, because ultimately, like, if I wanted the gym to grow, I had to become a different person. Chewy teaching every single class has a very low ceiling as far as how far the gym is going to grow. It's just the
Yep.
way it is. So in order for the gym to grow, in order for me to serve my students better and the people around me better, I had to change as a person. And there was a ton of guilt with that. Like I remember taking, like for instance, the first night, I remember this, the first night. So I started teaching pretty much every jiu-jitsu class in the gym back in 2010. And the first night that I had a weeknight off where I didn't teach classes and it wasn't really jiu-jitsu related. I had one in 2012 and then, 2001 and 2012, one in 2014. 2 days out of like every other weekday. I was always there, always teaching every class. There was two, and both of those were for dates, right? But otherwise I was there for every single training session. And so it was hard for me to shift into this idea that I'm becoming someone new and I have different goals now and I've got to become a different person. And it was difficult. I felt a lot of guilt to it. And again, I had to sort of look into why I was feeling guilty and how silly that is. And so you have to ask yourself that, like, why do you feel guilty? Maybe you should feel guilty because you're failing yourself, and there's a reasonable thing to do with that. It's fine. Use it as a kick in the butt. But if you're feeling guilty just because of you're supposed to do this, or you should do this, well, then you have to decide if that's like conditioning that's been placed upon you, or if you've just got locked into a particular idea that you need to break away from and shed in order to become someone else or to do something else.
Yeah.
So
No, it makes sense. And I think he will be the only one that knows about the guilt, why he feels it. So,
well, in some people, here's the deal though. Some people don't ask themselves these questions, right? Because we're so inundated with information. We're so stimulated. We're like constantly being bombarded by stuff. Like, back in the day, people would get bored and just sit around and think. People don't really sit around and think anymore. Like, because if you get bored, you're like, please give me something, like scroll. Like I need something to be stimulated. It's like, just sit down by yourself, turn all the stuff off, and like, either journal or just go for a walk and ask yourself deep questions and bounce them around in your head and like try to figure out why you think the way you think and why you hold the beliefs that you do. And it's a worthwhile thing to do that from time to time.
Mm-hmm. I agree. All right. Question number 2. This is from Jason. What advice would you offer to somebody that is going to help coach for the first time?
That's interesting. So there's a lot of things that are going to happen. I'll let you speak from your standpoint in a second, because you'll have a different perspective on it than I am. So one of the things that will definitely happen is you're going to get into the coaching spot and you're going to feel some level of insecurity. I almost can, unless you're completely delusional. Anytime we step into a new place of status as humans, we always are going to be shaken up a little bit, and we're always going to experience some insecurity. It's just normal. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times what we do in order to fight against that insecurity is we try to build ourselves up to basically use that as a crutch. So for instance, if we feel insecurity in a particular way, we might try to achieve some level of success in a particular area. And we use that as our crutch to help us stand up and say, no, like, I'm not insecure. Look how good I am. I've done all this stuff. And we can use this as a way to show how good I am, right? Like, I'm a good person. I'm a doctor. I'm a good person. I have $100,000 in the bank cash. I'm a good person. I, have built this business, or I've won these medals, or I've done these. We try to use our accomplishments then to sort of hold us up to sort of like, help shield the insecurity. And so one of the things I would say as a coach, remember that your job is to make sure, going back a little bit, to hell with your insecurities. Okay. As a coach, your job is to support those people. And the reason why I bring this up is because a lot of times coaches, because of their insecurity, will lose sight of what they should be doing. If you really want to help those people, you should be focused on making sure that you're giving them something that they can use like tomorrow. You're giving them something that's going to be usable for them at some point and is going to be helpful for them. I've seen coaches in jiu-jitsu go in when they're on the newer side. I was kind of guilty of this a little bit too. And they want to wow people. They want to get in. Oh, let me show you these cool techniques. Da, 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 da. But then it's look around. It's like none of these people are going to use this because one, this technique's not a good move for these beginners or these whatever, and two, this move might just suck anyway. And it's like a social media technique where it looks cool, but it's not going to be more highly effective. And there's a time and place for those. But again, as a new coach, you're probably not going to be delving into those. You're going to be giving people in the meat and potatoes, right? So that's what you should be focused on, and helping people do that kind of stuff. And trust me, when you teach someone something and they're able to use it like immediately, you will then take a new place in their head because they go, man, like Mark showed me this really cool technique. Mark only gives me good stuff. Right. Whereas like, I remember like there was a particular coach that I worked with back in the day that used to show like cool, fancy looking techniques. I never hit any of them. So I never valued his time. I was like, I don't like this. But then I had another coach who would show like the most basic friggin' moves, but he had good details for them. And then I was able to go hit those moves the next day. So I made every single one of his classes. And so again, you will help people by giving them the best basic stuff that you can, or the most effective stuff that you can, rather than wowing them. And sort of to kind of make a parallel here, it's like when I see a coach who coaches like lifting of some sort, like maybe, coaches people through strength training and things of that nature. And then because they're insecure about their position, they will risk their clients' health and safety by trying to get them to max out on some lift that they shouldn't be doing. And they're like, look what my client did. He deadlifted X amount of weight or whatever. Like, yeah, but he almost broke his back, spinal. And then, they did a squat and their knees are waving all through there. And like, you can just tell that person shouldn't be handling that weight. They risked that person's health to sort of give their own insecurity a boost.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I would just be mindful of that. Like when you check that at the door, like nobody cares that you're insecure. Nobody notices that you're insecure. Nobody's going to notice that. Focus on helping the people as best you can by giving them the best stuff that you have available, and try to make it the most effective things that you have on your arsenal if your coach is not giving you a curriculum of any sort to follow. So this way people will come to know you as this coach that gives them good stuff.
Yeah. I think that, you hit everything on the nail on the head, but I've got a couple things as, a newer coach.
Yeah.
And a big mistake, the thing that you said first was probably one of the most valuable things, is keep it simple. Like, I think a KISS, keep it simple, stupid, right? So keep it simple, number one. Like, and the other thing is, don't overwhelm people with techniques. Just because you know a shit ton of techniques doesn't mean you need to show everything. You have to try it, because like you said, there's a plethora of skill sets, right? You got, you could have a brown belt down to a brand new white belt, and you have to try to encompass everyone, give something to everyone in some way. Like you said, give them something they can use, whether it's a detail or even just a basic kind of general idea. I think that's very important. One of my big mistakes was I tried to show too much. I have all this information. I want to share it all. You get so excited as a new coach. You want to kind of give everybody the best stuff. You want them to, leave your class being like, man, that was awesome. But sometimes you do that and you show them way too much stuff, and they walk out and they don't know anything. Like a seminar, or a seminar with way too many techniques. So I think that keeping it very simple, and for me, like if you're just assisting as a coach, like talk to the coach, the head coach, and be like, hey, what are we going over? Can we run through some stuff, some details? Make sure you're prepared. Like, I love to prepare for stuff. Like, if there's a technique maybe that I'm showing, I want to make sure I run it through my head. I may even like drill it on my own, and just to see if there's any details that I'm missing, right? Because sometimes you'll do it intuitively and you'll knock it out of the park. You'll do it perfectly, but sometimes teaching it is going to be a totally different thing. You may forget a hand placement or a position or a kind of a key detail. So I think reviewing it, maybe even taking some notes, whatever, could be helpful. But if you're just assisting, find the key elements that the coach wants to cover and kind of go over that, so you kind of know if you get a question, you'll know kind of how to address that.
And here's another thing for you too. As a new coach, you're going to get asked questions that you're not going to have answers for. And that's okay. Don't bullshit people. A lot of times I've seen coaches where they try to basically bullshit their way through a question, and it's like apparent. You can just look at them and that they don't have a really good answer. Or I've even seen where coaches have sort of almost criticize the student for not, just going along with the move or whatever, So with that, if you get asked a question that you do not know, it's okay. Go and tell the student, say, hey, listen, I'm going to look this up for you. I'm going to do a little bit of digging and research, and I'll get back to you. And the next time you have class with that student, get up and show them. I remember one of the first times I showed the Darce choke as a coach, one of the guys was having trouble with the move. And it's because his arms were not incredibly long, and so it was very difficult for him to finish. And so I didn't really have a good answer for him at the time. And so I said, okay, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to look it up and I'll get back to you. So I went looking up watching some videos. I talked to a couple other coaches that I knew to see if they had any details, did some digging. And I came back to him the next week. I said, hey, here's how to finish that Darce choke we were looking at last week. He didn't look at me and say, oh man, Chewy is not the end all be all. He doesn't know everything. He was blown away by the fact that I actually remembered to check it out. And I think that a lot of times when you show, I don't want to say vulnerability, but when you're just human with your students, I think it goes a long way. When you don't try to act perfect, like you've got it all figured out, you're willing to listen to students, you're willing to listen to their questions. And when you don't know, act like you don't know. I've even had students, this is not that long ago, this happens all the time. I've had students where I do a move a certain way, and then one of the students will go, hey, Chewy, I kind of like to do it this way. Check this out. And they'll show me a detail, and I'll look at it and go, well, that way's, I think, superior to my way. So let's go ahead and come back and teach it that way.
Yeah.
And so I think that's another thing. Like, you don't have to have it all figured out. It's okay. Think of yourself not as the mystical, all-knowing guru, but rather a curator of information that's going to like pick out and bring the best that you can to those people. And when someone brings something better to the table, you're willing to put that up there, So again, if you were an art curator, you're curating the best stuff you can for people to view. And if something better comes along, you'll put that on the wall just as fast. And just think of it that with your techniques, rather than trying to be completely infallible and all knowing.
Yeah, I mean, we're never going to know everything. We're never going to know all the techniques in jiu-jitsu. There's lapel stuff that you could go down a rabbit hole and learn forever. And there's no-gi stuff, leg locks, and all that stuff. You just got so many different avenues, and then you got to look at how it fits to a body style or a body type or an experience level, right? You're not going to teach certain complexities to somebody that's brand new. You might just try to break down the very basic technique principles to them that can kind of assist. So it's just kind of, it's a skill. Teaching is a skill, and there's a lot of there's some nuance to it as well, because not everybody learns the same way too. So I think it's a fun thing. It's interesting. I love teaching. It's very rewarding, and it's very it's great, man. You have a great class, and people kind of do the move, always like, hey, did anybody hit the move today, or the technique we were working? And it's always fun to kind of see light bulbs go off and things like that. So just go for it. Have fun. It's a great process to be able to kind of give back a little bit too.
That's right. Absolutely. So guys, with that, we're going to jump into some Q&A today. This is going to be some sort of fast-paced, rapid-fire Q&A. Well, I say rapid-fire, but we go on tangents. This is one thing I was talking to one of the guys about the other day. I was like, I've got to stop. People ask me questions sometimes, and I like launch on diatribes about something. Yes. I got to stop it.
Why?
Why?
Because why do you have to stop? That's you, dude. That's
I know.
you.
I know.
That's what you do, and that's what we like.
I know.
Because sometimes, man, you get to this. You're going down this windy road, and you end up somewhere in left field, man. And like you come up, you just, it's awesome. It's fun. It's fun to see. That's the whole point of. I mean, I understand if you're like in a 2-minute conversation, but in a podcast format, like, dude, let's go to left field. Well, no,
podcast is completely normal. No. Podcast. That's in podcasts and videos. It's what I do, and that's completely fine. But there's times where at the gym, I like, there's a couple guys who I know like will hang out with me and they'll just want to hear me going on about some stuff, which is so I know. But like sometimes like this morning, one of the guys, Fleener was like, hey, Chewy, do you drink decaf? And he asked me the question, and I went on this whole thing about decaf coffee and like how I was like, just me talking about it. And I stopped and go, why do you ask? And he's like, oh, I've got some decaf coffee. I didn't know if you wanted it. Like I should have just answered like, no, I don't drink it. Why do you ask? It's as simple as that. But I was going, well, I used to, and I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah,
So yeah, so I went off the tangent. I mean, granted, he's used to it, but at the same time,
We've been around you long enough. We know the drill.
I know. But I don't want it to be someone like, oh man, I don't want to ask Chewy a question. He's gonna rattle on for 5 minutes, and all I want to know is I need a yes or a no.
Just want to know if it's about the farmers or not. And,
About the farmers.
It's not about the
Damn
farmers.
farmers.
Yep, it's good. All right, let's get into it, man. You got
All
it?
right.
Let's go.
Have you read the Koran? I have. Have you?
No.
Okay.
No. I don't.
One of the guys.
Why did you read it? Just for fun?
Yeah. One of the guys gave me a copy. One of the guys
cool.
he's Muslim. He gave me a copy, so I figured I'd read it.
I've never been offered a copy, and I haven't. I don't know. I think I would read it. I probably would. Just
I mean, I've read the Bible and read the Quran.
the principles. Probably there's a lot of principles, ideas that can be useful, or probably universal principles. That are kind of.
I just find religious texts kind of like interesting. Like when you look at them, like like when you go through like the Bible, especially like the Old Testament, there's some like wacky stuff in there, like so I find it interesting. And obviously we're still trying to take these writings and interpret them for modern day.
Yeah, for when they were written,
Yeah, man, it's not easy.
Forever ago, and it's like, what do they mean? Literally, this thing.
Do you stretch before or after jiu-jitsu? What does your stretching routine look like? I like stretching afterwards when my muscles are nice and warm. I don't like stretching before too much. We do sometimes in the mornings, we'll do a little bit of stretching. Like, and by mean a little bit, we just kind of pulse in and out of the movements just to get a couple areas like moving first. But as far as like long holds, like where you're like, holding for 2 minutes or something, I'll do that after class if I'm going to do it.
Yep. More dynamic. And you don't have freaking an hour to stretch beforehand, so you make it a dynamic kind of sequence where you go in and out, and that helps kind of wake the body up and helps kind of stimulate those little stretch receptors and get those muscles kind of woken up. And I agree with you. And then stretching afterwards, great way to cool down and bring your body to kind of help with some soreness and things like that.
Here's one. This one's from Vanilla Gorilla 89 says, have you seen professors hold students back on promotions to make their school look better? And I have. I don't know if it was always to make their school look better, but sometimes to give a student a particular shot in a competition. Most of the time it's competitive related. Because the level at competitions is higher than, like, say, your club level guy. So for instance, if I know someone's going to be a competitor, I'm probably going to be a little bit more slow with their promotion opposed to someone that's a club level guy. Not because the person couldn't compete one way or the other, but because sometimes that's just the way it is, right? They're shooting for a particular goal, and you see this from a lot of competitive gyms where, the guys aren't necessarily moving through the belts super, super fast, even though they're doing like really well. And that's partly because that I was a competitor, and I remember getting promoted very fast. And while I was able to do okay at every belt, I really didn't like being promoted so fast when I look back at it, because I didn't have time to enjoy the moments where, okay, now I'm at the top of the blue belt heap. And it would have been nice to have a few tournaments where I could, play around a little bit. I was always having to play in that like low to middle range where as soon as I got proficient, I was being kicked to the next division. And that never allowed me the ability to kind of learn how to relax and play around. And I didn't really get that until I was a brown belt, because I was always playing in the place where I was either the new belt or kind of right in the middle of the pack. And then right when I was in the middle of the pack, starting to kind of get pretty good, boom, I'd get my next belt. And it just didn't give me a lot of time to essentially play at those different belts and learn how to relax during competition and be a little bit more experimental during competitions. So I try to do the same thing for my students now, or do the opposite. I try to make sure they have time to play around in different competitions. And once they get to that higher level of that particular belt, I let them kind of sit there and season for a little bit before I move them on.
But you did mention, I'll play devil's advocate here, you did mention, that really the thing that matters, that not the most important thing is probably black belt, adult black belt, So if you're holding people back a little bit, I mean, you may be giving them a little less time, really to be at their peak at that black belt level. So there's kind of a balancing act, right?
Well, sure. And I'm not talking about holding people back for a long time.
Sure.
I'm saying give them a couple extra tournaments, right? Like, I'm not saying like if they're a blue belt and they just like smash everyone, or they just won worlds or something like that, we'll give them a little bit of time and then we'll move them on.
Gotcha.
But I've seen people get held to belts for like, years. And I think that's kind of like a silly thing to do, because then again, then you're chipping away at someone who's a competitive person. And really at the end of the day, what matters is black belt.
Sure.
If you're a competitor who's eventually going to be a black belt, what matters is black belt. I
Yeah.
mean, what you did before is cool, but nobody cares. I mean, and I don't mean that in a negative way. It's just the nature of the beast. When you become a black belt, no one's going to say, hey, man, like, this is the purple belt world champion. Well, he's a black belt and been a black belt for a decade, but he won purple belt worlds. I mean, it's cool that you can have it on your resume and say what you did, and it's fine, but it's not something that you're going to probably want to throw around all the time. But if you get a black belt world championship or a black belt title of some sort, that's with you forever. It's like, winning something in the minor leagues and then you go to the major leagues. It's like, it's cool that you did it, but at the same time, now you're in the major leagues. What matters now is the major leagues. It's just the same thing. So, it's a balancing act. You got to give them a little bit of time to season at those belts so they can really kind of get that momentum, because there really is something about the psyche. This is why when people like boxers, for instance, early on in the career of a boxer, if the boxer is really good, they're very protective of that boxer and who they fight, because they got to build them up. They've got to build that momentum up, because there is something magical about, you get a person who feels like they're unstoppable. They feel like a freight train. They feel like they're just going to mow down the competition. It doesn't, it matters, of course, but that's like a force multiplier for their skills. Because if you feel like you're a friggin' Mack truck that's about to run over the competition, and you truly believe that in your heart, and you have the evidence to back it up, because that's what you've been doing over and over and over again to people, then it's a powerful thing. Now, granted, you can have someone that does not believe that and they can shatter that idea. But again, for a long time, that's going to be a thing.
Yeah.
You look at any fighter when they're on a run, you look at fighters when they're like just kind of going forward. This is true in MMA too. It's like there's a period where they're almost unstoppable. And then eventually that, they're not. But for a while they're in this point of like maximum skill and maximum confidence. And so you want to give people time to build confidence in themselves at these belt levels if they're going to be a competitor, so that they can have that evidence for themselves, so that like when self-doubt kicks in, they can be like, oh, wait a second, I'm a badass. Look what I've been doing, right? And then they can immediately go out there and be aggressive with their techniques.
All right, so I'm going to go look at it from a different angle now. Chewy, as a coach, you have held people back from receiving belts for other reasons, maybe some negatives. What are some things, what are some reasons that maybe you look at that someone you may not feel is skill-wise ready, however, maybe emotionally or like maturity-wise they're not ready? What are some things that maybe like for you, you're like, man, this person skill-wise is ready to go, but I just don't feel like they're ready to represent this next belt yet?
Well, I mean, one for me is the way they conduct themselves, right? Like if you're a dickhead to your training partners, don't expect a promotion to come from me, because to me, that's a big deal. Like, it's a really big deal. Like if you're someone that like treats your training partners like trash, like I don't really even want you in the gym, but I'm certainly not going to promote you, because if by promoting, I'm awarding behavior, right? I'm saying, oh, this is good, right? And especially when you get into things like purple belt's a big deal, bro. Like purple belt, like that's like one where I'm kind of stingy with purple belts, because like at a purple belt level, that means like I started it with a purple belt coach. When people come into the gym as white belts and they meet purple belts they're like demigods, right? They're untouchable in jiu-jitsu. It's just this crazy thing. Now, granted, it's not that far off, but in the beginning, it seems like it. I mean, when you're a white belt and you run into a purple belt when you first start, they just seem like they're on another level, right? Unless you've had some sort of grappling experience before. And so with that, I want the person to, just demonstrate, a certain level of camaraderie and care for their training partners, because again, at the end of the day, I kind of view it this way, where we're all interconnected. I mean, we all are interconnected, both in our gym level, but even just through nature and everything else, we're all interconnected. And so with training, like you and me, let's say, for instance, you and me are training. You and I are essentially become this one unit when we're rolling, this one entity that's rolling back and forth as our bodies are trying to move and maneuver to try to best the other. And while we're this unit, we're making each other better. I can't get better without you. You can't get better without me. And so we need each other. And so a person that treats people like garbage inside the gym doesn't understand that on some deep level. And I think that's a bad thing. And to me, it shows a certain a lack of character on their part. And I don't want that kind of person to keep moving up the ranks, because at black belt, I mean, I'm sending you with all the belts, but with black belt, if I don't feel like you're a decent person, I'm not going to promote you. And so, the way that you conduct yourself inside and outside of the gym, it plays a big role into the way that I promote people. I'm not saying that martial arts has to make you a better person. I'm not saying that at all. I think it can if you want to be, but I am saying that you become a representation of me the higher up you go.
Yeah.
So if I'm going to like put my stamp on you and say, yeah, this is my guy, this is my woman, right? My woman black belt or whatever it is. I want it to be someone that I feel confident that, if I was gone, people would want to be around them and they would value their training and being a training partner, or if they were a coach, that people would be able to come in and have a good experience.
And if people don't know what you mean, being a good training partner, it's like not trying to hurt, not trying to hurt your partners.
It's the golden rule.
Yeah, and that's one. But
I mean,
else?
it's very simple. I mean, like nobody wants to get injured.
Sure.
Nobody wants to be treated like shit. So just don't do it to anybody else. Like push each other and really like force each other to get better. And you can squeeze and put people in uncomfortable positions. That's okay. Right. But at the end of the day, do so with a sort of in the back of your head, a remembrance of like, I need to have this person around, so I don't want to injure them and I don't want to overdo it. I want to cook them a little bit if I can, because that makes them tougher.
Yep.
But I don't want to cook them too long that they get fried.
Mm-hmm. You don't want to break your toys, man. Don't have any toys to play with.
That's right. Let's look for another one. Do you know what Car-Jitsu is?
Car-Jitsu, yes.
Someone says, what are your thoughts on Car-Jitsu? What the hell is that?
So, you know how Russian people always do weird stuff. Mm-hmm. Like you always see like these like 5-on-5 MMA stuff.
Yeah, in an obstacle course.
Yeah. So obstacle course. Somebody falls off, breaks their head or whatever. So it's like these people grappling inside of a vehicle. They literally have these cameras, like on the outside, people staying on the outside, and they're in like a vehicle, and they're using like the seat belts and like different stuff to like strangle each other and go for submissions. Yeah, it's ridiculous. It's silly. Ridiculous. It's so funny, and like it's just that's all it is. And I mean, it's like the only applicability maybe if like you're sitting in the front, the front seat and somebody comes behind you, like maybe you're like an Uber driver and somebody starts choking you. That might be the only reason like you may ever want to learn those type of, but yeah, it's like a jiu-jitsu competition in a car. So
interesting.
Yeah, not really. I think you see it once. I think you've probably seen it all.
That's like that. What did they have, the X-arm thing with the arm wrestling where they were fighting with the arm wrestling?
Yeah, they attached their arm and they're punching each other.
Yeah, they're like the one dude got leg kicked. Or not leg kicked, but head kicked. Yeah, got knocked out with a head kick. So stupid.
I do like the slapping one.
Oh, bro, no way.
Did you see the video of so there's like a slap contest? Yeah. And it was at the Arnold's.
Yeah.
And Arnold Schwarzenegger just sitting there, and like I think Logan Paul is like commentating.
Yeah.
And this dude just gets flatlined, and like they catch him, and like they pan the camera over to Arnold, and he's just like staring at like, what the hell? What did I allow in my competition?
Bro, it's so stupid.
I mean, Boss Rutan used to drop people with an open palm strike to the body. Like,
it's granted, I'm saying like, listen, we're all gonna lose our brain cells doing something, but I mean, just letting someone have like a free, like from the hips, like bam, smacking them. Yeah. No way, bro.
They're over there like putting like, chalk on their hands, and they're prepping, it's just wild. I don't know. Not for me. I don't like getting hit in the head.
Do you prefer to roll before lifting or lifting before rolling? Personally, I like to separate them by several hours if I can, but if I have to do one or I have to do them back to back, I like to lift first, roll second, because if I roll first and then lift, my body feels super loose and like I don't feel very stable when I'm lifting. Whereas when I lift first, I feel stable and strong, and my muscles feel loose when I go to roll. And then when I'm rolling, I just turn down my intensity because I won't have as much strength as normal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. I really don't like to lift. I really don't like to lift on the same days that I train. I think my body just has a little hard time with it. But I definitely I would lift in the morning and then like train in the evening kind of thing. But I definitely want some like at least 2 to 3 hours between for sure. But I agree with you. You'll feel kind of like, I think if you have a really tough, training session, like you're contracting, relaxing those muscles, and you're gripping and you're vigorously gripping and pushing and stuff. So you're gonna be kind of fatigued already. I feel like you're physically a little more fatigued, and then obviously neurologically, I think you also take some, like sometimes you have like some brain fog after a tough training session. You're relaxed, but like you're just like, because it's pretty intense. I mean, you got to be on it. So I think I agree with you.
Someone asked me about like some good books that I've been reading. Man, I'm always reading a bunch of stuff. I'm going to start like a book club or something like online at some point just to share books. But one that I read recently, I've read his book, The War of Art, by Stephen Pressfield. It's one of my favorite books. And I just like it. It's a good book. It's a quick read. You can read it in about an hour or two. And I read that, but I'd never read any of his other books because like the only other book I knew about was he had that Legend of Bagger Vance, which is some golf book or something.
Yeah.
And I never read
movie.
They made it into a movie. And like, I didn't read it because I was like, I don't really like golf, so I don't want to read that. Well, I didn't realize this, but he has a ton of books based on like, there are a bunch of historical fiction books based upon wars and battles and stuff. And so I read Gates of Fire.
Okay.
Gates of Fire is a really good one. That book read super easy. It's about the 300.
Yeah.
About Sparta and the 300. And so it was that, and it had a lot of historical information in there, along with some inaccuracies. There was a lot of like just some of it's just like creative license. He's just kind of going through, and so a lot of it is just kind of getting at human qualities. I read another one called The Virtues of War, which is about Alexander the Great. Again, he talks about the battles like at Gaugamela and the Granicus River and Issus, but at the same time, as he's going through it, he's like kind of getting into these characters and kind of giving them personalities that maybe we didn't understand or maybe didn't exist, but gives them interesting personalities.
Yeah.
While sharing the historical information. And then I read another one, which was I think called the Knowledge or something, I can't remember, which was a book about something completely unrelated. But anyway, I found I've enjoyed his writing, so I've gone through about 3 of his books in the last month. And so if you were going to read one of them, I would recommend Gates of Fire. If you're into like, warfare type stuff, history, Spartans and Greeks and stuff like that, it would be a good one.
Pretty entertaining. Like it's fiction, correct?
It's fictional. It's a historical fiction
based on like historical events, but it's kind of, he takes liberty with, creating the character and developing the character and, giving him his own spin on it. Yeah.
Yeah. And like I said, if you've watched my videos or listened to the podcast, like he took creative license, but there was a lot of cool ideas that I think could be useful to someone. I think I shared the one about the sort of the bracelet. So basically in the battle with the Spartans, they had the little bracelet that had these 2 sides of it with their name on it. One side they would take with them into battle so that if they were killed, they'd be able to recognize who they are. And then one back at home. So they would have to join them and collect their second half in order to get their food rations and stuff after the battle, but also so that they could count up who had died. Granted, these didn't actually get used for that purpose that we know of. There's some evidence that they had them at some point, but we don't know what for. But in the thing, he sort of used it as this idea where Leonidas sits up there and basically talks about joining the 2 sides of ourselves after the battle's over. And so it's a really cool, a cool part of it that I think is useful for a lot of us. And so again, really worth a read.
Awesome.
Here's one. Better to rest before competition or train hard. Personally, the week of, all I do is drill and rest. And basically I do no hard training because at that point, there's no point to. Personally, I feel better when I compete and I'm well rested versus training really, really hard like the whole week up and then maybe taking a day off and then competing. I still don't feel recovered.
I think the only piece I'll add as far as like tough training, like I agree with you there. I like to kind of get my heart rate up. So I like to do things, maybe even like some intervals during that week just to get my body used to recovering.
Oh, well, see, drilling gets my heart rate up. Like,
drilling,
I'll get into like the 120s and stuff like that easy with the drilling because I'm moving fast.
Yeah, I like that, but maybe adding like, I like, one of my favorite things is like intervals, like doing like Tabata or something, doing it on a not recumbent, but a stationary bike,
Hmm.
or even like I like doing some sprint work, but a lot of I always make this joke like Jiu-Jitsu athletes are not good runners, like their running mechanics suck.
Terrible.
So I would not, if you're not a big runner, you're not used to running, I wouldn't recommend going doing sprints because you might pull something, pull a hammy or something like that. So I would say, yeah, something like drilling, like you increase your heart rate with drilling, or even getting on like a stationary bike or even a road bike or something, doing some intervals type things. I think would be good.
Yeah, like those. I don't necessarily, as in, I don't do those the week of, but those are good. I do those for extra cardio leading up to the competition.
Mm-hmm.
Here's one. How long did it take you to get your black belt? For me, it took me about 8 years.
8 years,
So,
I think.
how about you?
From 2008, May of 2008, and I got February of 2021. So
21.
about 13 years.
Yeah, about 13 years.
Yeah. It's it doesn't seem that long though. Like,
Mm-mm.
I don't know. You just kind of like you look forward to the first. To me, I look forward, to the first couple belts, and I was like, well, I'm on this ride already. I ain't getting off. So
Yeah.
it's just when it happens, and almost like you're like slow them down. At first, you're like, come on, bring them on. Then you're like slow them down a little bit. But yeah, everybody's so different. Like I think eight's probably what do you think average is, like 10,
7 to
10,
12.
7 to 12. Yeah.
7 to 12, somewhere in that range.
Yeah.
Average.
So it's just yeah, and that means like, hey, did you take any long breaks? Did you change gyms? Did you change coaches? And then you have kind of a little bit of a different a different way. Some people just train no-gi, and so like the belts are kind of a little bit. It just depends. Like some like no-gi gyms, purely no-gi gyms, they're going to promote that way, and then but then some people like we have a probably, what are we, like 40, 60, probably 40 gi, 60 no gi, something like that.
Probably something like that.
Class wise, which
Yeah.
it never used to be like. It used to be more gi, I think. We used to be more of a gi.
Yeah, we used to be a
gym,
bigger gi. Now it's becoming bigger.
Isn't that
no-gi.
crazy how it's transitioned, like how it's changed,
Mhm.
to just the no gi side. I don't know, I think like you see all the competitions, like all the the who's number ones and the ADCCs and all the biggest, I think the most the most looked at and the most kind of sought after, like are probably no-gi. I feel like the ADCC is like the World Series, obviously.
Yeah.
So, or like the Super Bowl. So
Well, yeah, I think the ADCC is the difference is it's not a tournament that is open to everyone. So, for instance, if it was the World Championships and the only thing that the World Championships had was the black belt divisions, I think it would be more prestigious. It's still a big prestigious tournament, but because of the fact that
I understand what you're saying.
yeah, it's like it just gets drowned out. Like it's like it goes on for 4 days, and most of it is white to brown belts. And so then eventually there's, whatever. If you just said, hey, listen, this is the World Championships, and you've got to like somehow get in, you have to make it in there with whatever, and then the best grappler is going to win. ADCC is not based on belts. So
Right.
basically it's like whoever gets there, and the best one's going to win.
Yeah.
And because it's done in that format, like we remember more about it because that's it. Whereas during a normal IBJJF competition, still very prestigious, but they're happening so fast, and it happens every year, and so we don't really remember it as much.
Did they do like a qualifier for black belts? Did they do that? Points, right?
Yeah,
points.
they have to do.
Do they still do that?
Yeah, they have to get enough points for the IBJJF now for IBJJF Worlds. If
Right,
they're going to
that's
be a
what I
black belt,
thought.
yeah, you have to have enough points.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, like I think it being every couple years, instead of every year, I think, and also you got to qualify to get in, and you've got the best of the best there. I think you just, I think it adds some, and also the production. I mean, they've done like was it Seth Daniels? Is that his name?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he does like all the production stuff, and he's done such good stuff with like Fight to Win and
Well, sure,
and all that. And it
it's
just
marketed
adds
differently.
it adds
Well,
such a fun
it's like
element.
IBJJF World. It's another tournament.
Yeah.
But like, if they were like IBJJF Worlds, let's see who wins this one, and start naming off all the people that are going to like, be in it, and like, oh my God, this is going to be crazy, but you don't. And so it just ends up being another competition for a lot of these guys. And it's a big one, super huge. And I mean, when someone says they're a black belt world champion, we go, man, that dude must be a badass. But most of us don't necessarily watch it in the same way.
I agree.
Someone asked, how many calories do you take in during a day? It depends. So right now I'm trying to bulk up, and on my workout days, I'm getting around like 3,700.
Yikes.
It's a lot of food.
Mm-hmm.
It's especially when I'm eating like good clean sources. Like I'm not eating junk food. Like I don't have, like right now in my diet, there's no added sugar other than honey. I get I get 20 grams of honey on a lifting day, but other than that, there's no added sugar to anything. Everything's basically spices, hot sauce, like, things like that with no sugar. And I eat rice, potatoes, lean meats and veggies all day long. And it's more difficult than you might expect to get up to that many calories eating that
Mm-hmm.
stuff. You're eating a lot of food. So anyway, yeah, that's what I eat right now. And then on my non-lifting days, I eat a little bit less, and that's that.
What about do you do anything as far as like salt? Do you limit your salt, or do you mess with that at all?
No, I eat a lot of salt. I don't
Yeah.
limit it
Okay.
because I sweat a ton, so I need it.
Mm-hmm.
I drink a lot of water. I train a lot, so I need a lot of salt. Blood pressure's fine. So, I think a lot of times, like, there's a lot more studies coming out on salt and talking about the effects of it and what it does. And, again, back in the day, it was like, oh, you can't have salt. And there are some very highly sensitive people to salt. Like some people are really sensitive to salt, but it's actually a rather small portion of the population. For most people, like if your salt increases your blood pressure a little bit, like you probably, if your blood pressure is high, there's probably a lot of other underlying issues going
Absolutely.
on,
Yeah.
like different vitamin levels, being overweight, whatever. There's a lot of other issues going on, whereas like salt, like usually, especially for a lot of people, if you're training all the time and you're getting like out, like almost getting like lightheaded and stuff, and getting all kinds of weird cramps and stuff, like you might need more in your system. Obviously consult your doctor before like going crazy with the salt, but
Sure.
just from experience. And also just if like it's also helps me not like have to take a leak in the middle of the night too.
Yeah. More like you retain, I guess, more water.
Yeah, you retain a little bit of the water, helps out at nighttime to get some good sleep. Here's one for me. This one's from some guy, Galvin, I think. He says, Couch versus Ryan, who takes it? So he's
Couch
referring
versus
to
Ryan.
Jacob Couch versus Gordon Ryan. So Jacob Couch was going to go against Nicky Ryan. Nicky Ryan
Yep.
got injured apparently, and so now he's going up against his brother Gordon Ryan.
Yeah.
So who's going to take it? I think Gordon Ryan's going to take it. If I had to bet money on it, I would say Gordon Ryan's going to take it. Now, my heart, who do I want to win? I want Couch to win because Couch,
Of course.
he's a Kentucky boy, and I like him as a human being a lot. Like he's a good dude. I like him, and so I would like to see him win.
Yes. I think like there's a lot of elements to that, and we can actually talk about the Nicky Ryan thing. That's an interesting thing about his injuries. I've read about. I listened to him talk about his stuff. That's
Oh,
like
I didn't know. I don't know anything about it.
I'll tell you about it
Okay.
in a minute. I kind of saw his like he kind of said what he was dealing with, but yeah, like I mean, it's a risky thing for Gordon, right? It's a risky thing for Gordon because it's like it's really there's not a ton of upside. He's bigger than Jacob. He's probably going to be stronger. He's more
Mhm.
seasoned, and he's a black
Yeah, he
belt,
has more to
and
lose.
he's got more to lose. But Jacob's one of those dudes that's like he's got a lot of momentum coming in right now, and he's like been really doing well. He's been winning, and he's tough, man, and he's been training his ass off. And I love Jacob. He's a good dude, really really good dude. And I've seen him kind of come up through the ranks. We've known him for a while.
He's come out to the gym and everything else.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I know him personally. And I think he's a good dude, and I want him to win. That's all I'm gonna say. I'm rooting for him. But I hope it's just a good match, and I think good for him for taking it, and good for Gordon for taking it. I think that's it's good. Hopefully they have a good showing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's gonna be a fun match because Jacob's gonna go after it. He's gonna go after his legs, and he's gonna try to get him. So we'll see. It's interesting, but Gordon is he's the best in the world for a reason.
Yep, Gordon is one of the best. So I just think it's going to be a tough matchup. And it's because it's one of those things where and again, you never know until the day
Never
of.
know.
You never know, but it looks to be that Gordon is better from pretty much most of the positions that Jacob is. But again, I'll be rooting for Jacob.
Yep.
And all the way, by the way, guys, I have no ill will towards Gordon Ryan either.
No.
I mean, I know some guys don't like him because he talks trash on the internet. I don't really care because I don't follow that stuff. To be honest with you guys, I know like some people follow the trash talking stuff. I'm not bored. I got stuff to do, so I don't follow it. So I know that it happens sometimes, and I'm just doing my thing. So
Gordon's done a lot, whether you like him or hate him. He's done so much for the sport. Like, he's brought eyeballs to it. He makes it exciting. He's getting paid, and you know, it's kind of like I would say he's got like that Conor McGregor effect, right? Like, you bring a lot of attention. You're probably one of the highest, if not the highest paid guy, and that's gonna kind of move down a little bit. Like, some other guys are gonna start getting paid a little more. So I think, you know, like him or hate him, you know, he does things a certain way, and I've heard this from people, and you've kind of told me too. I think you've kind of heard, like, he's got fans, and he's like really good to his fans. Like, if you're good to him, he's kind of good back to you. But you know, you don't want to be on the other side. You don't want to be his enemy. I think that can, you know, he'll talk trash, and that's okay. You got to expect that. So
yeah, I mean, again, he's a sportsman, and he's trying to get eyeballs. This is an interesting thing. So, for instance, like, let's say if you take someone like Muhammad Ali, right, and you ask someone today in our time if what they think of Muhammad Ali, you know, I mean, you'll get called all sorts of different names to sort of compare him as a hero, right?
yeah, the boxer. We're talking about the boxer,
The
not
boxer
the
Muhammad,
jiu-jitsu
yeah,
guy.
not the jiu-jitsu guy, the boxer Muhammad Ali, the, you know, from Louisville, Kentucky. And you know, they would say, okay, yeah, like he's like a hero.
Yeah.
But during his time, he was hated and he was liked. I mean, basically, he was a guy that was another polarizing figure, who a lot of people didn't like, and they would go to the fights because they wanted to see him get beat. And so, but you know, as time goes on, we kind of forget about those things, and we see the accomplishments and what he stood for. And we're like, oh, we kind of like the guy now, you know. But during the time, he would say a lot of stuff. He talked a lot of trash, and he was really good at it.
Yes, he was.
You go back and watch some of those old interviews and stuff like that, and it was super entertaining with that kind of thing. So the thing is when you watch people, I don't really have the stomach to do this. By the way, this is not something I I know that inherently it would be a really good like tactic marketing wise, but I just don't have the stomach to do it because it's not something I would want to do, and I don't believe in it. So I would not want to exchange it for anything because it's just not me. But when you look at most people who are like high earners for their spaces, okay, whatever it is, it's pretty much universal to this. They're no longer just in the business of doing their thing. Okay. So for instance, like Gordon Ryan is an excellent grappler, right?
Yeah.
But Gordon Ryan is in the business of being Gordon Ryan. Okay. People can like talk bad about the orange man Trump, right? I don't care if you don't like him either, you know, whatever, it doesn't matter. Maybe you love him. Trump was in the business of being Trump. Now, he was good at doing some of the stuff that he did, and we can like poo-poo on him all we want to. He was obviously good at doing something along the way, but he was in the business of being Trump. If you look at like people like the Kardashians, it's like they make $1 bazillion to tweet something, right? They're in the business of being the Kardashians. And when
I
you
still
look,
don't know what the hell they do. I still don't know to this day. Anyway, moving on. But I just wanted to put if somebody tells me what the hell they do, I still don't understand. Anyway, I don't know what they
no,
do.
again,
But
idea. But when you look at people that really stand out in these niches, there's two things. One, they have to be good at what they're doing. They have to be pretty good at what they're doing on some level, right? Conor McGregor is not in the business of being fighting. He's in the business of being Conor McGregor,
yeah.
right? That's what he does. And so when you see those people, understand that's just what it is. And so part of that is to be polarizing, because here's the thing about being polarizing. I was talking to one of my students about this. We were having like philosophy chat after class. Anytime you want to gain people's following, one of the ways, it's one of the easiest ways to do it is to create polarity, create contrast, and even have an enemy particularly, right?
Yeah.
So you can create like I'm against this and I'm for this, right? And that can create a certain polarity where instantly there's an us against them. Like, like if you say I'm not for masks, or I believe that everybody should have the right to choose whether or not they get vaccinated or something like that. I'm just using this as a modern example, right? Instantly, we draw a line in the sand and people they've staked out their spots and they're going to be going back and forth, right? And so you see that all these different people will do that kind of thing. And it's a marketing tactic. It's like when you see these different movements, this is something that, again, I'm going off on like sort of like an idea here, a tangent with you, so stick with me. But if you guys are ever looking at like some sort of movement within our society, you will inevitably have an enemy of that movement, right? There's always someone that we have to fight against. This is the person that's against us, or these are the people that are against us. There always has to be, because it's the easiest way to unify people, right? To get people angry about this group. But two, in order to have a movement like that, a mass movement, you have to have an enemy. You have to have, like the quote that I've shared numerous times, right? You can have a movement without a god, but not without a devil. You got to have someone to hate. And the bad part about that is it becomes self-perpetuating, because when people move into these movements, they'll never give them up, right? Because if you achieve rank and status and money and power in these little movements, you're not going to give that up. So then what do? You always have to have an enemy, whether it be a new enemy, or you just, even after you've won the battle, you just continue to fight against the old enemy and you just say it's not over yet. But you see this a lot of times with people like that are personalities. They'll constantly have a new enemy. And it's just a way to get you, there's something going on over here, right? Again, I'm not really that privy to it because I see what's going on and I'm not really that interested. But when you see people, you watch it happen. It's just, it's almost, I mean, I applaud it in a way. It's very like, it's almost like watching a conductor play an orchestra. It's like, this is my enemy this week, angry, right? Or angry. And then there's this whole battle going back and forth, and it gets attention because people kind of enjoy the drama. But that's just a kind of a side tangent for you guys.
Yeah. No, I mean, you got to make it. That's the thing. What it does is it gives you a side, it gives you something to root for or root against, and that's very very important. Because that's why people, they're not going to care otherwise. If it's a non-issue, people aren't really going to jump on board. They're not going to really go out of their way to fight for it,
right,
or fight against it. So, the thing with Nicky Ryan, let me tell you about that. Okay. Now, I'm not 100. I know that I think re-injured his knee. So what happened was, and he's only 6 months out. So I believe. So he had a meniscus tear, like a bucket handle tear, where like it was like he was having mechanical locking, meaning that you've had this before.
Yeah, I've had it, yeah.
Where the meniscus basically it's torn and it'll flip, the torn tissue will flip into the joint and it'll get caught and you won't be able to straighten your knee and you have to kind of wiggle your knee around and so his knee started catching and locking on him. And so what he had done was a repair. Now at his age, he's in his early 20s. If you can get your tissue repaired, meaning they'll go in and they'll try to suture that. They'll take that meniscus that's torn. They'll try to suture it kind of together or fix it, and then they'll suture it down. Yeah. And they'll put it down. They'll they'll do some things like to try to stimulate blood flow to the area because the meniscus depends on where it is. It doesn't get very good blood flow. So what you do is, and it's very tricky because you've got to let that tissue heal.
6 months is not a long time to be training like that.
No, it's not. It's not. And I think like it just depends because you got to be really like for the first. It depends on the protocol for the doctor, but you're like really not putting a ton of weight on the leg for the first 4 to 8 weeks. It now depends on the person, it depends on the doctor, whatever else they had to do. So you're really like super slow. The progression is very slow. There's range of motion restrictions, like you can't bend it very far initially because you don't want to stress the meniscus. Versus like when they go in and clean the meniscus out, they shave it off. Yeah. They just take the tissue that's torn, they clean it out. But what happens is that kind of speeds up the whole arthritic and kind of breakdown of the knee. Your knees are going to wear out a little faster because now there's less cushioning to go around. You're going to wear on more different parts of the knee. So I think what happened was he got back probably earlier than he should have. And he twisted or did something in the knee, and he tore loose the tissue. It doesn't always, heal. But I think what he's going to do now is he's going to get it just the tissue removed. He's going to get the meniscus removed. And then he's like, I'll be back in a month versus 6 months. And I'm like,
yeah, but it's still not going to be like being like, I mean, even I remember coming back from my first meniscus tear when I was 19. And I was like, just jumped right back, and it was a mistake because my I can definitely feel it on my right knee,
Mm,
and I have for a number of years, because I think I didn't give myself enough time to actually heal up from it, and
yeah.
I think I friggin' paid the price for it a little bit.
Yeah, I think I think time's of the essence. And if you're a young person, and I always talk to your doctor, obviously, but if you're younger, you want to think about longevity of your leg.
Hmm.
Um, and if you want to do jujitsu for as long as you possibly can, try to get it repaired. Try to keep as much of your tissue as you can, as much of your meniscus as you can, unless you have to. I mean, they'll cut it out, and he'll do great. He'll do fine. He'll probably won't have any issues, but eventually that knee's gonna start giving him problems again, because that's not it's not really a long term solution, because you're starting to wear on that meniscus even more and other parts of the meniscus. So
Well, I mean, it's like, I think it is a long-term solution. It'll just be one of those things where your knees are going to wear out faster when you get older. Probably gonna have
probably,
to have
but
a knee replacement, that kind of thing.
man, no, my knees hurt all the time now.
Yeah. The thing I would tell anybody, regardless of the injury, man, is just like, so for instance, my I had another meniscus tear back in 2014, and I was much more regimented about that recovery. I did all my PT work, religiously. I also gave myself a timeline coming back. I'm
Yeah,
like, I'm going to train this many times. This is when I'm going to start training. This is when I'm going to start like drilling. This will be, projection of my very first roll. And if I don't feel good, I'll push it back a little bit. I'm not going to hang to this schedule religiously. And, when I came back from that one, much better results,
yeah,
much better results. Cause I remember even when I was 19, my knee gave me trouble for about a year and a half after the meniscus tear because I just never gave it the full time it needed to heal. Whereas with the last one, I did 12 weeks before I even had my first like light roll. Right. I was like, so
smart.
I took off like 3 months, but I was moving around a little bit. I was doing some really light movement. I was doing my PT work and stuff. And when I came back, I felt great. I mean, my
Yeah,
cardio needed to kind of get back up to speed, but like my knee was good.
yeah,
And so I would encourage anybody, regardless of the injury, you know, be conservative with your return. Again, you being in a rush is never the best mindset and the proper mindset to be when you're thinking about something long term, right? You don't want to make you wouldn't do anything that's going to affect you for the rest of your life in a rush decision. You're not going to marry someone in a rush. You're not going to well, you shouldn't, right? You're not going to make a medical decision in a rush. You're not going to choose about like what to do with your business in a rush. You're going to take your time, be thoughtful about it because it's going to affect the rest of your life,
yeah.
right? Otherwise it's going to be like that crappy tattoo that you got like when you were drunk, and yeah, you did it in a rush, and it kind of lives it's around and it's there to mock you and for doing what you did. Anyway, side tangent.
I get it. I get it.
By the way, I
But
have no tattoos.
one thing I want you guys to think about as well, as far as knee injuries go, when you're coming back, you have to really be mindful not just of your surgical or your repaired knee, but your other knee as well,
Hmm.
because that other leg has been taking the brunt of it. It has been working twice as hard and doing a lot more of the work. So you got to be mindful. You're stressing both knees now, and you're relying on one knee. So your other knee, your non-surgical knee, is also vulnerable. You got to be careful with that. And also, you're out of practice. You may be, I think what happened was, I don't know how B team does their stuff, but I'm sure, man, they just get after it. Brandon's been out there, and they train hard, and a lot of rounds and a lot of rolling, and sometimes you get the itch. You're back on the mats, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh damn, I thought that was not bad. I can do another round, but your body's not quite there. And you usually find out the hard way. A lot of times you'll find out when something goes bad. So,
Well, and usually, like you've talked to me about this, like in when our tissues, when we get really fatigued,
mhm.
especially when we come back, when we get fatigued, all of a sudden, like things aren't working the way they should, or we're slow to respond, and a lot of times that's where those re-injuries happen.
Yeah. I mean, you got to be sharp mentally and physically. And then a lot of times that you lose that mental edge, and mental sharpness goes as well as the physical sharpness.
Mm.
And it's deceiving because you don't know. You can't really, you don't feel until you're out on the mats. You don't really feel slow, or like you're not, you feel like you're same old Chewy or same old Eugene, but it takes a while. It's like you're pushing on the gas, but man, it ain't going. It's like, what's going on here? The 0 to 60 takes a lot longer.
Is morality subjective?
Morality, you mean like
Here,
define morality? Let's make sure we got the
let
same.
me bring up a definition of morality.
Don't tell me the same thing, because that is a double-edged sword, my friend.
Morality, principles concerning the distinction between right and wrong or good and bad behavior. Morality.
It depends.
So
on
is it
the
subjective?
Situation and the environment.
So subjective then, which I agree with.
Maybe I mean, don't know.
I think so. I think that
let's look at. This is kind of relevant, but kind of a very little controversial. Cain Velasquez, right? Most people know, if you follow MMA, Cain Velasquez. I think it was maybe his daughter or somebody in his family that was like, that was
sure.
A man that was like a relative of the woman that was watching his kids. I think he sexually assaulted his daughter, and so he took it upon himself to chase this guy and like shoot at him or whatever. He basically took the law in his own hands.
Right.
Was he right to do that? Was he wrong to do that? Like in that moment, more like me as a father, if that was
you're cheering him on,
I would be doing the same thing.
Well,
you know what I'm saying? Like,
my thing is, why didn't he just take him out of the car and beat his ass?
I don't know. Who
like
dude,
why?
You don't think clearly. That's not a situation.
Right.
That's probably one of the worst fears as a parent. That's probably one of the worst fears that you can have. I mean, obviously you want your kids to be healthy and safe, but that's one of the fears that you have, man, because that stuff that's life changing for children,
Yeah,
and for a family. So like, I don't know, like I would probably do the same thing.
Now, let me ask you from a parent, because I'm not a parent. Because I think the bad thing about this, and I haven't followed the case, but I think the bad thing about this is now if he's going to go to jail,
correct, yeah.
Well, then now his daughter doesn't have a father at home,
correct, yeah.
right? So, like, did you do? And again, what I think he did, I'll just say this because I'm sure people will misinterpret this. What I think he did, I think he acted with noble intentions, because obviously he did not like the person. But at the same time, you can't have people in society deciding that they get to be judge, jury, and executioner. It's the reality of the situation. Would I be upset if a guy who is a pedophile got like murked? No, I wouldn't be upset. I wouldn't care. But at the same time, like, it's the nature of the laws, right? And basically, we don't get to live in a culture where just because you did something that was illegal, I as a person get to decide when you get killed, right? That's not the way the system works. And if we had that, then it becomes, well, what other laws do we get to go kill
Correct.
people over, right? But the thing that I think about is from a parent standpoint, let's say that it happened to one of your children, would you be upset for them, or would you be more upset with yourself that it happened? Because
I'd be upset for them.
Because I think that's my curiosity, because it's like one of these things where you're a parent, you're you are their protector, right? You are, especially as the man to a daughter, right? Like, you are, especially like a warrior like Cain Velasquez, in his heart, I'm sure he is the sworn protector of this young girl. Like, he's there. And for that to happen, I imagine that was an incredible blow to him as a person. Like, I can't believe this happened to me or to my daughter, and I wasn't there to protect her somehow, right?
But like, that's oh man, like, you can go to what ifs, you can go down the line. I should have seen this, I should have known that. Like, you just kind of respond in the way that, like, almost like internally, that you just have to correct, or not correct, try to right or wrong in any way possible. And like, I mean, you see that stuff, like you see outbursts and things in those kind of situations, even in jail, like, or like in a jury situation where like the parent jumps over and tries to get at the person that maybe harmed their kid or their family member. Like, is that right? Well, they're probably gonna go to jail maybe for assaulting someone. But again, let's get back to it, because it's a very
no, but that's a great example, because it's like, Was it a moral thing? Did he act with moral intentions?
Yeah, and I mean,
Right. I mean,
yeah.
but the outcome wasn't good because he didn't actually shoot the guy that he was
Yeah,
aiming
and he
to.
could have hurt somebody. I don't know if he did, but he could have hurt somebody. You know, if you're firing, you taking a firearm and you're shooting into a vehicle, there could be
Right.
other people around and stuff. But like, man, I don't.
But
You
see,
know,
there's
he
a great
did
example.
probably
So there,
almost.
no, but listen, there's an example. So if it was objective, killing would be bad, right?
Yep.
But because this person had done this thing, it then becomes, well, because of pedophilia, we don't really care whether that person got killed, right? Because that person's a pedophile, we're like, that's fine, right?
Yeah.
But if you look at different periods of history, like those kind of acts were considered completely normal. Like it was completely normal to like wed a girl who was like 12, right? I mean, granted, life expectancy, what it wasn't what it was, right?
Yeah.
But like it was like completely normal. It was completely normal to have, you know, young boys do acts for certain men. I mean, when you look at the relationship with the Greeks and some of the adult men and the young boys that they had, it would be completely disgusting to us.
Yeah, it's
And
horrible.
we would say this is awful and immoral, but at their time, it was completely normal.
Yeah, and like you can't think of like someone getting killed as just is it well, look at death row, right? Look at somebody on death row being, you know, the people decide this person has done this thing that's wrong enough to be convicted of being put to death. Like, is that some people think that's wrong, some people think that's okay, right? Like, so that's another, you know, that's just
Well, here's
strange.
one.
And in some states it's legal, in some states it's illegal, you know,
Right.
to have someone on death row. So I think it's just, I guess it just depends on the situation. You
Of
know,
course, so subjective.
There's so much. It's very. I mean, yes, yeah. I mean, I think it depends on the lens you look at it, I guess. But
I mean, here's the thing. So think about this. Like, let's say that I've used this story before. Let's say you're at the grocery store and you give the woman the money, the cashier, you give her some money, she checks you out, and then you walk off. And then when you get to your car, you realize that she has given you like you know, $10 extra, right? Would you go back and give her the $10? Probably.
yes,
You're a good
yeah,
person. You'd probably go back
I
and give it to her.
would. Like,
Okay.
if it was like $1, I'd be like,
Yeah.
"Ah, I don't feel like going.
But $10,
inside."
$10, like you'd be like,
Yeah,
it's not my $10. Okay. But check it out. Now, let's say that, you know, you parked really far, right? Because the parking lot was packed. Okay, probably still go back. But what happens if you go out there and you're walking out and she, you know, they put all your stuff into brown bags, and as you're going out, it's raining outside, the brown bags get drenched. You got your two kids and they're fighting around you. You parked really far away. You get into your car, as you open up the hatch, you pull out your groceries, eggs are spilling everywhere and cracking the ground. You manage to pick up the groceries, the kids are screaming, and then like rain is just pouring down right now. The cashier wasn't that nice to you. When you get in there, you sit down and look at your wallet. You're like, man, she gave me $10 extra, but man, like, fuck, I've had a lot going on today, right? Instantly, it's like, well, you know, I'll be all right, right?
Yeah.
So again, we're all like, it's subjective, right? Our ethics and morals are subjective. I mean, you can look throughout history and see this where, you know, it's like killing is bad. Killing is against our rule book, right? Well, when we kill these people, it's okay because, you know, it's okay, right? When we kill these people, it's okay. Or, you know, it's bad to call people bad names and to criticize people, but it's okay when we criticize these people because of this, that, whatever, right? So it's all subjective. It's like there's not an objective line that necessarily runs through, I think. And because of the fact that humans, one of the most powerful things we do is tell ourselves stories, right? We make up the laws, we make up the ideas of what morality is supposed to mean. Those are the stories we tell ourselves. You know, and so I think yeah, it's the idea. So
it's an interesting question though, because man, it could.
You go down, you can go into the weeds. I've seen people argue both sides of it. So there, and again, this is not a right or wrong idea, by the way, guys. This is just ideas. But I've seen people argue both sides of that philosophical statement, meaning that's objective. These are always right and wrong, and then they're subjective, which is where I tend to lean to.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's definitely depends. It's subjective, depends on the environment, the situation. All right, let's end it. Let's get a good one, Chewy. Let's end on a nice, high, light, funny.
Okay.
Dad joke. I don't know. Whatever you got. We could do this for hours. We've done this for hours.
I know. We've literally been doing this for hours almost.
Let's
see here.
Last one. Good one. A good one.
I I don't know what a good one is
I
supposed
don't
to
know.
mean.
It's subjective, Chewy.
This isn't a good one, but I get asked this question all the time.
All right.
Best soap to use post training. Are tea tree oil soaps like Defense soap and superior to regular body wash? Um, I don't know. I've never used those. So I use Dr. Bronner's. It's just soap.
Mm.
It's a soap without a bunch of junk in it, and it's got a bunch of like it's got a bunch of writing all over it.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, I use Dr. Bronner soap, so that's what I use.
I use Defense soap. I actually have some Defense soap. I use it
Sure.
after training. I think like I don't. You have to have the good like bacteria on your skin as well, right? Like you don't like you should have good bacteria and all that. I think is there some good bacteria? I feel like there is.
Yeah, of course there's good.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah. You don't
your
want to
body
like
essentially your flora. You have basically like a essentially when you're going out, you have like a essentially like a bacteria force field around you,
yeah,
and then when you get too clean, you wipe it off. It's the danger of being like a clean freak to some degree, where then
yeah.
your body doesn't have the necessary exposure to certain bacteria then to fight other stuff off.
Yeah. So I use it's just something I do after training. Like as soon as I get home after training, I use Defense soap. It's like tea tree oil and stuff, and
Mhm.
it's helped and you knock on wood, it's been helpful to me, and that's maybe I like to use stuff that doesn't have a ton of chemicals in it as well, more like
Mhm.
natural type
Yeah.
ingredients. But I think, if you've used regular soap like you have, like the Dr. Bronner's, and you haven't had any skin issues, I think that's absolutely, but it also depends on the individual. Like, I mean, soap is not the end all be all. Like, what's your diet like? What's your gut bacteria like? All that stuff. That stuff can fight off infections and
What's
fight
your
off
sleep
things
like?
as well. Sleep and yeah,
I
all
mean,
that
because
stuff. So
again, like like
it's a
sleep's
piece to the puzzle, right?
like when you look at all the stuff that sleep does, like I mean, from improving your ability to lose fat to making you more like helping you make better decisions in your life, being able to fight off cravings, reduce your risk of cancer. I mean, the list goes on. It's like
Having
just
more energy, right?
here's
Like,
here's a fun fact. They did a study, and obviously, this is very subjective, right? But they did a study, and I was reading up about this that um, essentially for most people, like especially like high level earners and stuff like that, 1 hour of sleep was worth more to them in their happiness than an extra $70,000.
mm,
So like, for people that are like, basically I don't even think it was on high level earners. I think it was like just middle class people and up, right? But basically, if essentially if your bills are taken care of, right? At that point, an extra hour of sleep will give you more to your happiness than say an extra 70 grand.
hmm.
It's pretty crazy just for an hour of sleep,
Yeah.
you know?
I mean, yeah, like think of your body functions. Like if I go on I prefer 8 hours. A lot of times I get 7, but like man, I know how if I get a good restful night's sleep, how good I feel.
Oh,
How
bro.
much everything just you're in a better mood. You're in a
Yeah.
better mood.
You're like, I feel amazing,
I feel
Yeah.
great.
Oh, dude. I mean, that's like when I was having the issues with like sleeplessness and
Yeah.
like, I don't want to call it insomnia. I was just sleeplessness and dealing with anxiety or something.
Mm,
And when I was dealing with that, I remember like, you know, just feeling so worn down because I was running off
yeah.
of like sometimes 2 hours of sleep, maybe 3 hours, whatever. It was terrible.
Sucks.
And then I remember like when I kind of got it all out of my head and I started getting like 8 hours of sleep again, bro, I was like floating. I felt like I was
Yeah.
floating on a damn cloud. I was so happy.
Yep. Get your sleep, people. It's free for the most part, and it'll do you good. It's important. One of the best things you can do for your recovery and your health.
Yeah, like everybody asks me all the time, like Chewy, what do you do for like what kind of recovery hacks do you have? I don't have a recovery hack. I sleep. Like I mean, the CBD stuff helps and supplements help and a good diet and all that stuff helps. It's the basics, right? But the sleep
Mm-hmm.
really helps. I think
Sleep's
this is
it.
the thing. We've become such a culture where it's like we can just completely disregard bodily functions and just the basic stuff and we're looking for some like biohack or something. It's like, look, I mean, the body is this magnificent machine. We can't replicate it and we can't beat it at its functions. So the best thing to do is kind of go with it instead of trying to fight against it. Just move with it. Give it the best food you possibly can. Get some rest. And take days off from time to time and
Yeah.
rest, and then again, do those sorts of things, and you'll probably feel pretty darn well as far as recovery goes. I think a lot of times people like run their bodies ragged. They drink too much, they eat too much bad food, they don't sleep enough, they don't rest enough, and then they're like, I need some special pill that I can take. Like, no, you don't need a special pill. You just need to stop drinking and go get a nap in. Be all right.
Mm-hmm.
You
Yeah,
know?
your body will tell you. Like it literally will tell you what it needs, what it wants. Like, oh, I did that, I feel better. I did that, I feel worse. I should do more of the thing that makes me feel better.
Yep.
I should sleep more instead of staying up watching whatever, playing. Everybody's been playing that Elden Ring game. Have you heard about this thing?
I've heard about it. I haven't played it. No.
I'm like, they're like, oh, I put 70 hours, and I'm like, what are you?
Fuck,
what are you
70
doing?
hours. Whoa. Dude, I totally,
Oh,
I
God.
totally understand, dude. Cause I remember when the first time, so my buddy and I, we were Elder Scrolls nerds, right? So we played,
It's the same thing. What's with this Elden? What's that? Like,
I don't know.
It reminds me of like Elfin, whatever, like Middle Earth.
Right. Well, Elder Scrolls was like, Morrowind. I played Morrowind like a ton. And then they finally came out with Oblivion. And Oblivion was such a big launch. I remember when it came out, I stayed up all night playing it. Just playing all the entire night. And it's such a cool game. And I dumped countless hours into that, bro. I freaking couldn't tell you how many hours I played that damn game for. And I remember my buddy later on, he bought Skyrim.
Yeah.
I remember playing Skyrim for one day. I sat there and sunk in like 6 or 7 hours to it. And I remember just getting out of it. And I was like, whoa, no, I'm not doing this. I'm not doing this again, because this was by 2011. It's like, I had a business I had to work on. I couldn't just sit there and play video games all day. I found that I like to play video games now, but I play them for about 2 hours on Wednesday. That's the night where me and some of the guys get together and we play.
That's cool. All right, so you're gaming a little bit. That's cool.
I do it as kind of like a mental breakthrough at the middle of the week.
For me, it's just, I have like a little like I'll play like third person, not just something. I don't get online or anything, but I've got like a little PS4. I'll play every now and again. Like I'll go months without playing. I'll play for like 15 minutes and then I'm done.
Mm-hmm. I play for 2 hours on Wednesday, and we get done playing. That's that. So
yeah, it gives you a little. It does. It gives you a little mental break.
It also gives me something that's like, it gives me something to look forward to in the middle of the week, right? Besides my normal training and stuff. Yeah. And what's funny is I suck at it. Like, I'm not very good at gaming. And I play with friends that like they're much better at it than me. And I'm just, I'm like the worst one there, So
what are y'all playing?
We play some different stuff,
Okay.
But regardless of the game, I'm just the worst. And so it is what it is, So
I just give it to you. Chewy's always beating us up in Jiu-Jitsu, so we're just gonna give it to him in Elden Ring. Or
none of these dudes do Jiu-Jitsu.
Oh, okay.
Some of them watch MMA and stuff, but they don't do Jiu-Jitsu.
Okay. I thought it was like people from the gym or something.
No. It's like just random guys online, that I started playing with. Yeah. So
what's your can you tell people your screen name? Is that what his screen name, or what is it called?
Yeah.
Chewy 123.
Yeah, no, you might find Jiu-Jitsu out there somewhere. So
there you go. All right, you've heard it.
But I mean, it's someone else is probably going to have like that. Like, I'm Jiu-Jitsu, whatever. So anyway,
Chewy, is that you? All right. Well, Chewy, let's wrap it up, man. Thank our sponsors that have been gracious enough to support us.
We just lost half of the listenership. They heard sponsors and they're like, I'm getting out of this place.
You better stick around, because these people are they make the party happen.
They make the party happen. Plus, you don't know what we're going to say afterwards, because sometimes we get into these sponsor roles at the end and a whole nother conversation happens.
We never know anything.
But thanks to our sponsor, Charlotte's Web. You can check them out at charlottesweb.com. Promo code is Jiu-Jitsu20 for 20% off the order. Again, I love their stuff. I'm a huge fan of the products they make. I've been using them for years, and I would encourage you to try them out if you've never used CBD before, and just see the effect that it has on your body. Because again, we're all a little different. Supplements affect us differently. You could be ultra sensitive like the Chewster, or you could be someone that's like, I don't feel any of this stuff. Either way, give it a whirl. Try it for a month. See how you feel. And again, if you're not sure, again, just try it out. I know there's a lot of anecdotal stuff out there, and sometimes the claims seem too good to be true, because that's the way that I looked at it back in the day when I first heard about it. I was like, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
This is just some snake oil. It's not going to have anything. And then I used it, and I was I was unexpectedly surprised. And so check them out. Also, thanks to our sponsor, Epic Roll. You can check out epicrollbjj.com. Promo code is Jiu-Jitsu for 15% off. And Epic Roll makes a ton of different gear and apparel related to Jiu-Jitsu, quality stuff with cool designs. You can check out their gis, rash guards, shorts, hoodies, t-shirts. Again, if you see me wearing a t-shirt that you think is kind of cool and it's not one of mine, it's probably a Epic Roll shirt. As far as my videos and stuff like that are concerned. So again, check them out at epicrollbjj.com. Promo code is Jiu-Jitsu for 15% off. Also, thanks to our sponsor, Manscaped. If you're in the market for some men's grooming products for yourself or for a special man in your life, then you can check out Manscaped. Promo code is Jiu-Jitsu20 for 20% off the order and free shipping. Everything that I've used is a
cat.
Good. Did you hear the cat?
Yeah.
We're almost here. Come here.
That's all good. Bring the cat up there. What's up, kitty?
Kiki.
What you doing, kitty? Let's check him out.
He's
Oh, I can't see him now. There he is. What's up, dude? He's hanging out. Cat.
He's basically, he wants lap time.
That's all right.
He makes his rounds around the house. He's like,
right.
I forgot to close the door, so he's like, hey, what's up? I see that you're in the middle of something. I'm gonna come and ask you to rub me now.
My dog likes to snore very loudly. Whenever I was like recording some videos at the house today, and he's just snoring up a storm. I'm like, dude, what? Get it together.
Poor guy. He's got like we were talking about the other day. Piers, he's a little French bulldog. He's got built-in sleep apnea.
Oh, dude. And we were talking about their skulls and their jaws are just abnormal. You've seen the X-rays of them. They're abnormal. It's so abnormal.
But check out Manscaped. You can go to manscaped.com. Promo code is Jiu-Jitsu20 for 20% off the order and free shipping. It's a good deal. You could even use the trimmer to trim your cat if you wanted to. I've never done that before, but it sounds like a terrible idea. I mean, I remember I read like a article one time, or read like a post somewhere. Some woman shaved her cat's whiskers because
she to do that. Are you?
No, you're not supposed to do it. Like she thought that she didn't like the way that they looked because they gotten so long, so she trimmed them off, and the cat was like running into everything.
Yeah, it's like because their feelers. Or
it's their feelers, so it's part of their it's part of their sort of their nervous system because it's how they feel around. So then you do it, and you're like, what are you doing, dummy? And also, guys, if you want to support the Patreon, you can do that if you want to. If you want to support the podcast directly, you can go to our Patreon. You can get access to some exclusive content and even get a chance to not a chance, like you can do it. You can talk to us live if you want to by going to patreon.com/the Jiu-Jitsu podcast, long URL. But if you go there, you can get access to some exclusive content, talk to us live, and it helps supports the podcast, and we would appreciate it.
I think we'll be doing the green room this coming week. I think we'll be doing a green room, so keep an eye out for that. If you're a Patreon subscriber, you'll be able to chat with us then.
And also, guys, if you want to join the Chew Crew email list, my little personal sort of group of people that I email once a day, usually Monday through Friday, sometimes on the weekend, you'll get access to special deals and offers that I don't really release anywhere else. And on top of that, you'll get 3 free ebooks for joining up. Related to your jiu-jitsu, a jiu-jitsu game plan book, a drilling ebook, as well as a book on at-home study and jiu-jitsu training. So you can check that out at jiu-jitsu.net/join, JOIN. And I think that's a wrap. That's all I got. We did it. Chewy.
All right, guys. We will see you next time for the 200th episode, by the way. 200.
200.
Guys. Yeah.
Appreciate you guys for joining us this week. As always, thank you for sharing your most valuable asset, your time with us. By the way, hey, while you're here, you're still listening, right? Okay, you're not gone yet. Cool. Okay. So here's what I wanted to say to you guys. So right now, if you're driving, you're showering, you're hanging out, maybe you're lifting weights, going for a walk, you're on the pooper, whatever it is that you're doing right now, here's what I'd like you to do. If you listen to this podcast and the particular application that you listen to this podcast has a review mechanism on it where you can go and say, I really like this podcast. I listen to them every Monday or every day, whatever that day might be. And I'd like to give them a positive rating and let people know about how much I like this podcast. If you have that feeling in you, then why not? Go right now. You can just go there. You can be like, I like the podcast. It's terrific. They've got the best talks. I'm not doing a very good Trump right now, but you get the idea.
Decent, but they're probably not. They're like, I'm not voting for. I'm not going there and
Oh yeah, yeah.
Everybody
I
likes
probably lost
do
him.
a Christopher Walken. Everybody likes Christopher Walken. That's a good one for you.
You know, it's always so weird when I have to like
I
do it on command. Yeah, because it
He did
makes it
so
weird. Because
good
then
the
there's
other
an
day at the
expectation.
gym.
Um,
Come on, you can do this.
but I don't know. I don't want to do it, Christopher Walken. It's now I'm gonna do something else.
Who's that?
I don't
I don't
know.
know that guy.
He's British. My British accent sometimes sort of veers into like Australian, like, "Hey mate, how's it going?"
So we've offended a whole
We've
a whole
offended
political
multiple
group, and
nationalities.
now
So we've offended all our liberal listeners, and then we now have offended multiple nationalities.
there you go.
So
We're doing
I'm
it.
working,
Keep going.
guys. So if you like the podcast, don't zoom in on me. I don't want to do that.
Oh,
If you
it's so
like the
good.
podcast, go now and give us a review. Let people know what you think about us. It helps us tremendously, and it'll only take a minute. Please go now. How's that?
Beautiful. I
Does that
love
make
it.
you happy?
I love it.
All
Brings
right.
me joy.
That's what we're going to end on. Thank you guys so much for sticking around with us, and we'll see you next week.